There are few places on earth where the past feels as close as it does in Jerusalem. Step onto its ancient stones, and you're walking through layers of ambition, faith, and conflict that have shaped not only a city, but the destiny of nations. Twice in its long history, Jerusalem didn't just change rulers, it changed the world. First, Roman legions encircled the city's walls, bringing devastation so total that it scattered a people and transformed a faith. Then, nearly 1,000 years later, Crusader armies, driven by visions of glory and salvation, stormed through those same gates, determined to claim the city as their own. But if you lived through those sieges, would you defend the city or watch it fall? And what would you risk for a place you might never see again? What made Jerusalem so irresistible that two of the most powerful forces in history would risk everything to possess it, not once, but twice? And how did each conquest leave its mark not just on the city, but on the future of three great religions and the course of global history? This is Armchair Archaeology, where the world's turning points are unearthed layer by layer. Today, we unravel the drama of Jerusalem's twin falls, comparing the forces, faiths, and ambitions behind Rome and the Crusaders, and before the end, reveal a hidden thread connecting both sieges, with echoes that still shape the city and our world today. Before we dive in, if exploring the layered mysteries of the ancient world is your kind of journey, consider subscribing and joining our curious community. Every stone here has a story. Let's uncover them together. What gives a city such gravity that empires rise and fall around it? Jerusalem's pull begins with stories so deeply rooted that they shape the lives of billions to this day. For the Jewish people, Jerusalem has always been the beating heart of their faith. This was the site of the first and second temples, where traditions were passed down and prayers rose into the night air. For generations, the hope of returning to Jerusalem became a lifeline, binding scattered communities together wherever they went. But by the time Roman soldiers massed outside its walls, another faith was taking root: Christianity. For early Christians, Jerusalem wasn't just a place on a map, but the stage for the world's greatest drama, the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. Every alley and hill carried the weight of stories that would centuries later draw pilgrims from every corner of the known world. Islam had not yet entered the city's story during the Roman siege, but within a few hundred years, Jerusalem would become the third holiest city in Islam, forever deepening the city's spiritual tapestry. The Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque would soon rise beside ancient ruins, each new era weaving its hopes and memories into the same sacred ground. And hidden beneath these layers, sometimes literally, are clues that connect these faiths in ways most people never imagine. I'll show you one of these clues later in the video. Even before the Crusaders, visitors came from as far as Ethiopia and England, risking everything to touch the city's stones. Some scratched prayers onto walls, others left behind fragments of clothing or coins, tiny relics of longing. In modern Jerusalem, those layers are still visible. Churches, mosques, and synagogues crowd together, the prayers of three faiths rising through the same air, as they have for centuries, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in heartbreak. The city's magnetic pull is as strong now as it was 2,000 years ago. Picture a city under siege, its people caught between hope and terror. In the summer of 70 CE, Jerusalem's fate teetered on a knife's edge. The Roman Empire, determined to quash a Jewish revolt that threatened its grip on the eastern Mediterranean, sent its finest legions under the command of Titus. But inside the city walls, unity was unraveling fast. Rival Jewish factions, each with their own vision for Jerusalem's future, turned on each other, even as the enemy advanced. The city's defenders were not just fighting Rome, they were fighting themselves. As weeks dragged into months, Jerusalem descended into a nightmare. Food vanished. Ancient sources like Josephus, himself a participant and later a chronicler, wrote of mothers searching for scraps in burned-out homes, neighbors turning against each other, and hunger gnawing at every heart. The temple, the city's spiritual center, became both fortress and final sanctuary.
Its sacred courts rang with prayers and screams as flames climbed the walls. But the fiercest battles didn't always happen between Romans and rebels. They raged inside the city walls, where loyalty and survival collided. The most haunting details are not in the numbers, but in the moments. Some defenders, unwilling to watch their holiest place fall to foreign hands, leapt into the fire as the temple burned. In that instant, centuries of tradition and hope seemed to vanish in smoke. By the time Rome's banners flew over the ruins, more than 1 million people were reported killed or enslaved, with survivors scattered across the empire. A scattering so profound, it would reshape Jewish identity forever. Jerusalem's stones, blackened and toppled, told a story not just of military might, but of a city transformed by civil war and loss. A pattern tragically echoed in cities under siege, even in our own times. It makes you wonder, how many cities today are just one spark away from their own turning point? Was the Roman siege of Jerusalem really just a battle over belief, or was something else at stake? For the emperors of Rome, religion and power were inseparable. Jerusalem was not just any city. It sat at the crossroads of trade and pilgrimage, connecting the riches of Egypt, Syria, and Arabia. Whoever ruled here controlled a vital artery of commerce, ideas, and even rumors. Allowing rebellion to smolder in such a place would be like letting a match burn in a dry forest. So was it really about faith, or something else entirely? What do you think was the real reason Rome couldn't let Jerusalem slip away? Hold on to your guess, we'll circle back. Beyond religion, Rome's leaders had practical and political reasons for taking Jerusalem. But order alone wasn't enough for Rome. Spectacle mattered just as much. The city's conquest needed to be seen, remembered, and feared. When the Jewish revolt exploded, it threatened to inspire unrest from Alexandria to Gaul. The Roman answer was ruthless and theatrical. Jerusalem would serve as an example for every other city daring to defy imperial law. Prestige and personal glory were woven through every decision. Roman generals didn't just defeat their enemies, they turned victory into public ritual. When Jerusalem fell, prisoners and treasures, including the golden menorah from the Second Temple, were paraded through Rome's crowded streets. In a moment both triumphant and sobering, the Arch of Titus was erected, a massive stone memorial still standing, carved with images of Roman soldiers hauling sacred relics from the ruined city. That relief, still visible in Rome today, isn't just a snapshot of conquest, it's propaganda carved in stone, a message to future generations that Rome alone shaped history. Rome's campaign against Jerusalem was driven by military necessity, but also by the unyielding need to dominate the story. In this, they were not so different from modern powers that seek to turn victories into legends and monuments into lasting claims on memory and identity.
The aftermath of Rome's victory over Jerusalem was nothing short of a transformation, not just for a city, but for an entire people. In the days that followed the siege, Jerusalem's bustling streets gave way to silence and ash. Survivors wandered through ruined markets and empty homes, the air thick with the scent of smoke and mourning. The city's sacred heart, the temple, was reduced to blackened stones. For the Jewish people, the destruction wasn't just a physical loss, it shattered centuries of tradition built around temple rituals, forcing a profound reinvention of faith and daily life. Exile became the new reality. Tens of thousands were forced into slavery, while others scattered across the Roman Empire. This diaspora, that is, the forced scattering of Jewish people far beyond their homeland, would forever change Jewish identity. Instead of temple sacrifices, prayer and learning became the pillars of survival. The longing for Jerusalem, once a hope, became a living tradition, woven into songs, stories, and daily prayers that persist to this day. These events didn't just reshape one city or one people, they sent shockwaves throughout the ancient world. But the ripples didn't stop at the city gates. The treasures seized from Jerusalem, including the iconic golden menorah, were used to finance the construction of Rome's Colosseum, one of history's grandest arenas. Every roar from the Colosseum's crowd was a distant echo of Jerusalem's fall, a subtle, haunting connection between triumph and tragedy. Jerusalem itself would remain a symbol of loss and hope, its ruins a magnet for memory and pilgrimage. Even now, traces of that devastation are found in the city's stones and in the hearts of people who continue to mourn and celebrate its resilience. The fall of Jerusalem under Rome reminds us that cities can rise from the ashes, their stories evolving and enduring even after their world is turned upside down. But Jerusalem's story didn't end with Rome. The city, wounded but not forgotten, now entered a new age of shifting empires and faiths. Long after Rome's legions marched away, Jerusalem refused to become a forgotten ruin. Instead, the city entered a long era of shifting powers and new beginnings. In the centuries after the destruction, the Roman rulers tried to stamp out Jerusalem's Jewish character, renaming it Aelia Capitolina and forbidding Jewish entry except for a single day of mourning each year. But history has a way of flowing back in. As Christianity spread across the empire, new emperors saw Jerusalem as a place to be claimed and celebrated. Constantine's mother Helena famously journeyed to the city in search of holy relics, and soon grand churches like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre rose above older foundations. By the 7th century, the winds of faith shifted again. Muslim armies swept through, and Jerusalem found itself at the heart of a new world. The Dome of the Rock and El Aqsa Mosque transformed the city's skyline, making Jerusalem the third holiest city in Islam. So over just a few centuries, Jerusalem saw Roman, Byzantine, and Islamic rulers, each leaving a mark on its streets and stories. The city streets thrummed with the sounds of prayers in Arabic, Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, sometimes peaceful, sometimes tense. What is astonishing about this period is how daily life wove together remnants of every era. Merchants traded spices in Byzantine courtyards repurposed as markets, while builders scavenged columns from Roman temples to support new mosques and churches. In some corners, inscriptions in 3 languages crowded a single wall, a living testament to coexistence and competition. Through all these changes, Jerusalem never lost its magnetic pull. Its layered history, visible in reused stones and in the rhythm of overlapping prayers, set the stage for future conflicts and hopes. Even today, the city's blend of past and present is woven into the fabric of its daily life, making it unlike anywhere else on Earth. If the hidden connections between faith, power, and lost worlds fascinate you, you'll find even more to explore in our in-depth ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World: Mysteries, Technologies, and Lost Civilizations. From hidden rituals to the secret messages carved in ancient stones, it's packed with insights we can only touch on here. The link is waiting for you in the pinned comment if you're ready to dig deeper. Imagine the sun rising over Jerusalem, its golden domes and ancient stones glowing in the dawn. For centuries, the city thrived under Muslim rule as a crossroads for traders, scholars, and pilgrims. Christians from distant lands braved perilous roads to reach their sacred sites, and Jewish families rebuilt their lives in quiet corners of the city. Though tensions sometimes simmered, the sounds of many faiths and tongues wove a daily tapestry of resilience and hope. Far to the west, however, a storm was building. As the Seljuk and Fatimid dynasties vied for dominance, stories of closed pilgrimage routes, violence, and mistreatment began to filter back to Europe. Pilgrims who managed to return brought news of hardship and holy places under threat. The legends of Jerusalem's sanctity began to burn even brighter in the hearts of Western Christians. In 1095, Pope Urban II's electrifying call to liberate Jerusalem swept across villages and cities alike, offering not just spiritual salvation, but an irresistible sense of destiny. Across Europe, a slow surge gathered force. Small groups turning into crowds, then into a tide that spanned generations. Entire villages emptied as peasants, knights, and even children left everything behind. The roads east filled with voices in dozens of dialects, banners stitched with family crests, and battered wagons carrying household treasures and desperate hopes. This mass movement, Europe's largest ever, grew beyond a campaign
and became a migration that remade lives and landscapes alike. As the Crusaders neared Jerusalem, their arrival was more than a military campaign. It was the arrival of thousands whose dreams and fears, forged over continents, now converged on the city's gates. Their journey would not just change Jerusalem, but forever transform the meaning of pilgrimage, faith, and sacrifice for centuries to come. The Crusaders' first sight of Jerusalem in June 999 was more dream than reality, a city shimmering in the distance after years of grueling travel and loss. Many collapsed to their knees, overcome by exhaustion and awe. Yet what lay ahead would test them more than any journey. The city's defenders, a mix of Fatimid soldiers and local families, had sealed the gates and braced for the unthinkable. Inside, hope and dread mingled as rumors of the approaching army spread through the narrow streets. But now, as the Crusaders closed in, both sides knew that the fate of Jerusalem would shape the future of faith, power, and legend itself. The Crusaders, battered by hunger and thirst, faced their own crisis. Supplies had dwindled to nothing, and their siege equipment was little more than an idea. Determined to breach the walls, they stripped wood from abandoned houses, monasteries, even city gates, assembling towers and rams under a relentless sun. Disease crept through their camp. Water was so scarce that knights bled their horses to survive. The turning point came through sheer determination and cooperation. Genoese sailors, having marched overland from the port of Jaffa, dismantled their ships and hauled the heavy timbers 40 miles to the siege lines, transforming desperation into ingenuity. The wood became the backbone of enormous siege towers, the likes of which Jerusalem hadn't seen in centuries. After weeks of chaos, the city's defenses crumbled on July 15th. The fighting was swift and brutal, with streets stained with blood and cries echoing through the city. Chroniclers like Raymond of Aguilars described Crusaders moving from horror to jubilation as they reached the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believing prophecy fulfilled. In a single day, Jerusalem changed hands again, leaving behind not just victory and loss, but a legacy of courage, tragedy, and impossible ambition, echoes of which can still be felt in sieges and urban battles around the world. If you'd survived the Roman siege, would you have recognized this new invasion, or would history have seemed to repeat itself before your eyes? Let's get a conversation going. Drop your thoughts or questions below. I read every comment, and your curiosity is what shapes our next videos.
What drove thousands to risk everything for a city they'd never seen? For some, it was salvation. For others, it was glory, riches, or simply a fresh start. For many Crusaders, Jerusalem was more than a battlefield. It was the promise of redemption. In medieval Europe, sermons thundered that to fight for the Holy City was to erase a lifetime of sin. The dream of absolution turned every hardship, starvation, heat, death on the road into a sacred test, and many believed they'd see miracles at journey's end. Yet, even as prayers filled the air, ambition shaped decisions behind the scenes. The East held rumors of gold, silks, and spices, riches unknown to most Europeans. Nobles mortgaged their estates, hoping conquest would win them new titles or lands to replace what they'd left behind. Ordinary foot soldiers imagined a sudden leap from peasant life to fortune. For the powerful, the lure was even more concrete. After the walls fell, the victors carved up the city itself, dividing streets, shrines, and even holy relics among new lords, each staking out a patch of sacred ground. Within days, Jerusalem was transformed into a city of strangers, its neighborhoods marked by new banners and foreign laws. Some Crusaders slept inside churches, refusing food or water in awe or gratitude. Others quarreled over loot, appointments, and who would control the holiest sites. The city's spiritual charge and earthly rewards fused together in a way that neither conqueror nor chronicler could untangle. It's a pattern that feels familiar. When faith, ambition, and opportunity collide, even the holiest places become battlegrounds for dreams both pure and practical. In Jerusalem, belief and self-interest became inseparable, a tension that would shape every future ruler and every conflict to come. This era of transformation, where Crusader, Islamic, and Jewish histories overlap in a single stone, reminds us how much remains hidden beneath the surface. If you're curious about the technologies, beliefs, and mysteries that shaped lost civilizations and how they echo today, check out our ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World. You'll find stories and artifacts that didn't make it into this video. Remember, the link is in the pinned comment below.
Morning in Crusader Jerusalem must have looked and sounded like nowhere else. Latin hymns echoed off stone walls, newly scrubbed of old paint, while banners bearing the crests of distant European lords fluttered above city gates. The city's conquerors wasted no time in stamping their vision on Jerusalem. Grand processions filled the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Mosques were rededicated as chapels, and entire neighborhoods were parceled out to knights, priests, and merchants who traveled thousands of miles for faith or fortune. Yet beneath these sweeping changes, the transformation was also intensely physical, a process visible in the very stones underfoot. Crusader builders gathered materials from the city's wreckage. They used columns from abandoned Roman temples to support their fortresses, fitted carved lintels from old synagogues into church doors, and repurposed elegant arches from mosques to buttress new halls. Walk through Jerusalem's twisting lanes and you'd see a city quite literally pieced together from the past. A cross chiseled beside faded Hebrew or Arabic inscriptions, Crusader towers rising from the rubble of much older sanctuaries. The population itself was transformed nearly overnight. Many Muslims, Jews, and Eastern Christians who survived the siege were forced out or fled, while new settlers streamed in from France, Italy, Germany, and beyond, each bringing their own languages, tastes, and rhythms of daily life. Travelers wrote of a city that felt both foreign and familiar, a fortress pulsing with Western energy, but shadowed by memory and loss. Even in triumph, the Crusaders could not escape the city's long memory. In every reused stone, mismatched archway, and borrowed courtyard, Jerusalem's layered soul persisted, a silent rebuke to any who believed conquest alone could remake its heart. The city remained a palimpsest of dreams and struggles, stubbornly refusing to belong to any one age or people. And if you'd like to support more journeys like this, you can hit the Super Thanks button below. Every bit goes straight into research, storytelling, and bringing you more mysteries from the ancient world.
The story of Jerusalem didn't end with Roman or Crusader banners flying over its walls. In fact, each conquest set off ripples that would shape not only the fate of empires, but the meaning of home, memory, and sacred space for millions around the world. The Roman siege left behind more than toppled buildings. It marked the start of a diaspora, as Jewish communities scattered far beyond the land they called home. Centuries later, the Crusader conquest sparked new crusades and counter-crusades, fueling centuries of rivalry and alliance across Europe and the Middle East. For every faith that claimed the city, Jerusalem became more than a place. It grew into a symbol of hope and of heartbreak, of loss and of longing. Each generation that followed measured its own triumphs and traumas against these world-changing sieges, weaving Jerusalem into prayers, stories, and political dreams that echoed across continents. The aftershocks of these two conquests still ripple through modern headlines, peace talks, and personal stories. Even today, the city's past is never far from its present. Political leaders, pilgrims, and families all feel the weight of history as they walk its streets, debate its future, or mourn its wounds. Yet, despite every conquest, Jerusalem has resisted simple answers or easy ownership. It remains a crossroads where the ambitions and sorrows of ancient empires still influence daily life. The legacy of these twin falls is written not just in old chronicles, but in today's headlines, art, and rituals. Proof that some places never lose their power to inspire struggle and yearning. But is there a deeper thread that links these two world-shaking moments?
a secret that connects conquerors and dreamers across centuries? To find it, we need to look just beneath the surface, where Jerusalem's greatest surprises still wait, hidden in plain sight.
So what is the hidden thread that binds together the two epic falls of Jerusalem, a secret that neither Roman emperor nor Crusader king could have foreseen? It lives in the very bones of the city, in the layers upon layers of stone beneath your feet. After each conquest, the victors didn't just erase the past, they built atop it, literally and symbolically, reusing broken columns, shattered altars, and sacred remnants from the vanquished. Roman arches display the treasures looted from the temple. Crusader churches rise from the footprints of synagogues and mosques, their walls filled with stones that have served a dozen masters. Walk Jerusalem streets today and you can touch history. A Crusader pillar still bearing Roman chisel marks, a mosque courtyard paved with slabs first set by ancient priests. Each time Jerusalem was conquered, its new rulers built not just their own monuments, but monuments made from the bones and dreams of those who came before. The city is a living archive, where the past is never truly buried, where history, loss, and longing are written, erased, and written again, all on the same stones. This is the legacy of Jerusalem's twin falls, a city that refuses to be flattened into a single story, where every conquest is layered upon the last, and every faith, ambition, and memory is tangled in the city's ever-growing heart. So next time you see news from Jerusalem, you'll know you're not just witnessing another headline, you're watching the latest layer in a story thousands of years in the making. If you've been moved by the tangled histories of Jerusalem, let us know below. What era, moment, or layer would you most want to see for yourself? Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more journeys with Armchair Archaeology, where every stone holds a secret, and every secret invites us to see our own world with new eyes. Until next time, keep asking, keep exploring, and keep your curiosity alive.